Just make some introductions here. Thank you for coming tonight. Matt and I were actually talking about what would be an interesting topic for this month's meeting, and I've said this before, so if anybody's heard me say this, forgive me. But the beauty of running your own user group is you get to choose topics that are interesting to you. And I think that every developer, engineer, anybody that's pursuing a skill set, they eventually run into this place where they're good. But how do you go from being good, being competent, to being really good? And so this was a topic of discussion that Matt and I had, and I said, wouldn't it be just really helpful to get a few good engineers in a room to share just some personal input, some stories, some feedback, and some tips, and just some guidance on how to make that transition from being a journeyman developer to a master developer. And so the format is, I'm going to start out with just some kind of basic questions. From there, this is fairly freeform. We are going to try to move in a general direction at the same time as we're here for you guys. So if somebody says something that really just resonates and you want some clarification, by all means, raise your hands. This is your meeting. These resources are here to help you grow. So with that said, let me make some introductions. Unfortunately, Dylan was not able to make it. He got called away on kind of an urgent client meeting. So I apologize for that. At the same time, here is three very, very competent developers that I've had the privilege of being friends with, in a lot of cases working directly with. And so I can speak very highly of their skills and their contributions to the community. And so Don Felker is the author of multiple Android books, and he's done some screencasts, and just been extremely helpful for me, not only in a hard skill set, but also from just as a career standpoint. Just positioning your skills, leveraging your skills, and just moving your career forward. So it's just been a really phenomenal friendship that we've had. So thank you for that. Rob, we've been friends for a few years now, and our intersection is actually through our involvement with community. And the one thing that stands out for me is Rob just is so knowledgeable. And so he's not only is he knowledgeable, but he has the ability to articulate that thought or that knowledge, and he's passionate about it. And so we've actually participated in a lot of events over the last couple of years, and I've always been not only impressed with what he knows, but just his selflessness to put the time together to go and share that information. Last but not least, Stephen. I worked with Stephen for a few years at Shutterfly, and I was his subordinate, if you will. Stephen is, and I say this without reservation and not to embarrass him, but he is literally one of the best programmers that I've ever met in my life. And not only that, is having worked with him for a few years directly, is he played a huge part in actually shaping my worldviews around how software should be put together. And the thought process is about writing great software. And so I thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. And so for me personally, I'm super excited to just see what I'm going to learn, even though I've had the privilege of knowing these guys for a few years, is my expectations are high. So, are we ready for the first question? So the first question that I would like to ask, and we'll just start from stage right, we'll just move left. I think that stays this way.
Which way?
So we'll start with Don. And so we're going to go in alphabetical. Thank you. B-R-S. Yeah. That'll cost you. So the first question that I want to ask is, what do you guys consider software mastery? When you approach software as a whole, what is your definition of mastery? What does that mean? Don?
I think that mastery to me, I treat it as a higher level concept, meaning that it's beyond software itself. Is a master is someone that can visualize the endpoint, the destination in which you're trying to get to, and may not know how exactly the exact steps they're going to take to get there, but can actually formulate a plan to get there effectively, even though they may not know the exact path.
That's it. Rob?
When I started looking at mastery, I started looking at the tools become kind of extensions of my body. So, if I'm looking at master craftsmen, they have a saw and they have a drill, but that's not what they're about. But they'll pick up that with very articulate skill, they'll be able to produce something after that. When I'm a master at my craft of software development, the software tools kind of become an extension of my brain. And so there's times when I kind of step out of my body into the machine for a while, and that kind of bites me because after a while I realize that my body's been hungry over here and I haven't been it. But these tools become an extension of myself such that I can craft really interesting things.
Awesome. Stephen?
So I think those are both great perspectives, and maybe a way to add on is sort of to go the other direction and understand the problem well enough to know when the thing that you're designing is going to fail, why it's going to fail, how you might address those failures, and whether or not those failures are important. At the risk of, say, over-engineering something that might get in the way of a simpler and more appropriate solution.
So with that said, what do you feel are the characteristics of a software master? Yeah, so we'll just keep going in a circle.
What would be characteristics of a software master?
Yes.
I think everyone's going to have a different opinion of what each characteristics are going to be. I definitely want to, we just said here in regards to how to identify failures, that's a huge one. Because when you're a master of your craft, you don't have to identify when something's going to fail. It's a huge important part of what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis because you're avoiding those failures more trying to. I also think that being able to plan is a huge part, but I also think having the resilience and also a little bit of stubbornness as well, to forge through the rough road that you're going to encounter. Because we've all hit the point in time when you are developing and making something that you don't really know how or what we're doing, we kind of have to play with it or mold it with our hands. And then sometimes you just get frustrated and you want to walk away. So having that resiliency and having stubbornness and not giving up is a part of a level of persistence. I would say that the majority of software problems are to some degree logic puzzles. And so being really skilled in logic is really fun. Taking a project and breaking it into smaller pieces so you have to digest each one, while simultaneously keeping track of the whole and then building each piece back up into a software solution that in the end architecture becomes the and being able to problem solve and separate problems simultaneously is really fun. You can watch both of the code paths happen simultaneously, then you can understand why this block doesn't improve. So I think that's a lot of fun. I really love the persistence from that. Pretty cool. Stubbornness, laziness plays a lot into it, but at the same time, tenacity. It's not so much about how lazy can I be, but rather how persistent can I be such that I can solve it so I never have to solve it again, and therefore be lazy from
Potential laziness.
Yeah.
Potential laziness. Get this registered up there.
A lot about persistence in there, dedication to the problem, and really getting into that problem set. I love stepping into the head of my user or into the head of my stakeholder, kind of walking around in their world for a bit and seeing the landscape. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to build a solution that needs to work exactly through those rose-colored lenses that they have. And so, crafting that solution, understanding their perspective, I can kind of build it so that when we're done, it's like, that. And once you get that emotional experience, now we can build onto it really cool thing. If we're in kind of a financial or an intellectual experience, then it's always going to be like, took you how long? You want me to pay this? But that emotional connection is really cool. It's a whole lot about getting to know your the bounds of your tools, and a lot about getting to know your problem domain and finding elegant solutions.
Laziness.
I really like that. It's really cool.
Stephen.
So I had jotted down perseverance, which is really what I talked about, but inquisitiveness. So one of the techniques that, so I come from a systems engineering or industrial engineering background, like academically. And one of the big techniques in Six Sigma world, which is actually sort of an interesting thing. It's a bunch of sort of branded recipes for solving problems. But one of the techniques is called the 5 whys, and asking why 5 times in order to really understand. Well, we didn't answer it, but the answer is recursive. Ask it recursively up to 5 times. And really sort of I'm using that process to help understand why it is you're doing something, why it is that you're doing something, or why something broke. And then in this field you've got to, I think, just keep up to speed. And so it pays, I think, to read all the real masters like Fred Brooks, and there's at least 5 to 10 books from basically everybody that you should probably read. But like for instance, The Mythical Man Month is a fantastic book, even if you skip the chapter about snakes, about adding resources late and just make a product of it. There's so much in there about software architecture and design. And breaking things down and compartmentalizing it, it's well worth it. So I don't recommend it. Or read it. But just staying up on things and understanding why.
So you actually just hijacked all my questions because why did you do that? Just kidding. Is Mythical Man Month, that's a seminal work.
What's the URL?
Yeah. Is, let's actually just work that this way then. What's a few other books that you really like? Sure.
Well, a great point was the 5 whys. I learned this. Someone else who came from a similar background when I was looking at a book up here in town. And this was back in 2001. I think it was that I learned about the 5 whys. Is anyone in here not? Raise your hand if you don't know what the 5 whys are, or if you're not sure they are. You want to go explain it? If you brought it up, I feel it. So very good. So 5 whys, as explained here, a little more detail is if say a stakeholder comes to you and says, we need to add a button on the screen here so the user can actually download the PDF report. You ask them why. Why does the user need to why do I need to put the button there? And then say because they want to download the report. Why does the user need to report on? Why do they need to report on the screen? And say why do they need to report on the screen? Okay, well, why is the report even important? You can keep diving in 5 layers deep for whys. Now that kind of solves it on a software level, and it's really important if you can actually get to the root cause. But it may actually be because they have no other way to get to the report, and maybe just email it to them on a weekly basis after an automated service and actually solve the problem.
That boss wanted this number that's down at the bottom of the report, and he wanted to know that on a daily basis, and the secretary was spending 20 minutes wandering through whatever to compile it to get to that number at the bottom. So if I have a screen that just shows that bottom number, the whole downloaded PDF thing goes away.
Exactly.
Or perhaps the whole reason for the report is done.
Yeah.
It's the automation of some existing paper process that if you put the right controls in, the whole analysis and inspection of that report may just go away, because really what they're trying to do is figure out how many things are out of tolerance. Yeah. And previously they had this thing that they would say what the measurements were. Well, what they really care about is the things that are out.
So I have this acceptance dashboard
instead of some raw report. So
the cool thing about a dashboard is now I can click it and drill into it. Now it's live data instead of every program.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I bring this up is I've taken the 5 why approach and I have applied it to everything in my life. So it's much more than like software mastery. It's much more of you need to make a major life decision. Why? okay, maybe you scroll down into the real reason, and I may come to find out that, oh, I really don't need to install a tool, I just maybe need to go to buy something and go swim at their pool every 2 weeks, because that's how often I actually want to swim, and I can save myself $10,000. Well, but it's just something that I've taken beyond the whole software and technology to apply to the real world.
I really like the part too, that it is a process of constant. That which I learned 10 years ago, XML is awesome. XSD is really cool. And so it's a process of learning. How do I keep up with that? How do I learn the tools that are cool, or that are trendy, or that are solving my user's problems? It is a field of constant learning.
So,
I got to follow up. Kind of, is mastery? Is it a destination? Is it or is it just a journey? And I think it's a fairly obvious answer, but what your thoughts on why? And
I think to some degree, this is why am I here? Where am I going? Type questions. If I die today, then what? And at that scale, it's a very different answer. But ultimately, I do it because it's really fun. Really, really, really fun. But at the end of the day, I put it away and I go play with my kids. Because that's even more fun. So, I happen to get good at it because I wanted to. If you want to get good, you can. I don't have any magical pixie dust or anything. I've just been at it longer. Be at it longer and get good and have lots of fun doing it. If it's not fun, do something else. It is hard, but it's really, really fun. The analogy that I like to make is that lots of people get high. They induce their bodies to do something. The coolest experience ever is when you spend, 2 hours, 4 hours, 3 days, and then you emerge and you have crystallized this wonderful experience, and it fires up and it works, and that is awesome. And that high, well, first off, you can remember it. Second off, it is so much cooler than any high that you can do any other way. It is so much fun. And to that end, is it a journey or is it a conclusion? It's those moments of elation that are just amazing. Enjoy the journey because it's really fun.
So let me segue that question with, why do you guys program? I mean, what do you think is the underlying reasoning for it? There's a point in time where it's like, I'm making enough money, I have a nice car. It goes beyond that. We know that. What do you think are the intrinsic motivators for why you do what you do? Yeah. Well, he's a drug addict, but
for me, why I program, it's a little bit of a backstory, but I come from a background in Northern California, and I hated computers until I was 20, and I actually never turned one on until I was 20 years old. And I came to Arizona to become a motorcycle mechanic. I went to motorcycle mechanics and graduated from there. And at the time, I had found a girlfriend at the time, and she had showed me the internet, and I got super interested in it and started. I wanted to build my own website because I'm a creator. I love to build things. In high school, I built things. I was in cabin making for 4 years in auto shop. I loved taking these apart, putting them back together. And I just like the process of solving problems and being able to sit down at a blank slate, an empty canvas, and then, as the dog said here, emerge a few days later, a few weeks, a few months, come out, and then now I have built something out of thin air. For me, that is a fantastic experience, if it's for a project, if it's just for money, for business, just the art of creating is something that I enjoy. That's it.
Well said. Bob, would you like to
Go ahead next to the dice game for.
Well, I'll go ahead and go. I too enjoy just the creative aspects of things, and I have a unique opportunity that so during the day I work at Shutterfly, and we build, at least on my side of the table, build software that use to make photo books and calendars and cards and stuff like that. And then you can go into the place where we manufacture stuff, and you see all these people who have made these really great things memorializing birthdays and weddings and all that stuff. And that's, so it's a physical, we're writing software that manifests physically, and it's a great job to talk about it. How do you exactly? And then when you get asked, like, what do you do? Usually people have positive experiences. That's great. I worked in Motorola and Freescale, semiconductor manufacturing stuff. And it doesn't but it is really cool to be able to just have something like, oh, that feature didn't exist before, or maybe it was causing people problems. Like we were struggling, maybe people were struggling with 1,000 or 1,500 images like and now it doesn't. And you've reduced that friction, or you've made it so much more compelling to someone, and they can go and make that a part of their lives. And that's pretty cool. And I think one of the things that is great about the place and time that we are is that we have these crazy phones, and like these devices are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and yet more powerful. And then we have a really 3D printing space growing that it's just going to rewrite everything. And so it's kind of funny to sit on a panel about like mastering things, because I failed at all of that. And that's a key part, I think, of mastery is like exposing yourself to failure, because otherwise, like, what are you pushing hard enough? And is it really going to be an elegant or simple enough solution for to be valuable to lots of folks? And that's how you get to fail.
There will be that group. I really love the problem-solving aspect. I love people watching. I love watching the things they do. And what I really like is I have 1,200 dots, and I have 1,000 dots, and there's no rules. It's not like, well, you can't build that shape because you don't have machinery enough to craft that. I have the dots, and I can do whatever I want. So I can build tools that help people to solve these problems, whether it's a manufacturing problem, or whether it's an advertising problem, or whatever. I can wander around in that problem space. And at the end of the day, hopefully they don't have that problem anymore, or they've forgotten that they have that problem.
My Fitness Pal, which is my current client for consulting manager, been with everybody a year and a half now, building on the Shutterfly things that we're speaking about. It's being able to build something for people that use it in the real world. And for those of you who don't know, My Fitness Pal is basically raw forms of calorie counting. That's what it does. You just are you eating enough calories, or eating too much? That's it. But what we have is we have people every day emailing us with photos. I used to weigh 415 pounds. I now weigh 195. Without that, I wouldn't have done it. Like, we've literally saved hundreds, thousands of lives. Just seeing that like on a day-to-day basis is just an amazing thing. Because it's again, I've taken the dots, I've helped the team create what we created, and now we're actually saving lives with those dots. And so it's kind of brings a full circle in terms of reward. It's really hard to explain it to people.
Agreed. I think we have a question. Yes, sir.
So a lot of other professions use like master, that would create a master and teach someone else. Is that something that you think
That is a great question. It's actually on the list. So the question was, in a lot of other fields, you are not considered a master until you actually start to teach other people. And what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that? Teach others?
One of the things that's interesting about our field is that it's really not very developed. It's not a great profession. We're not very good at it. We create software that fails all the time, and that's completely okay because the next version is around the corner or whatever. If we were building bridges, that would really suck. What I think of it is, our industry is kind of pre-industrial revolution. We're artisans. Back in the day, back in the dark ages, the recipe for building a sword was, if it in the urine of a red-headed child, it was redhead after your head. But we're kind of at that scale, and so, to that end, what in our industry is a master? Is it certification? Is it duration? Is it a certain level of education? To some degree, we don't know, and we're still figuring it out. Ultimately, what makes us masters? I don't know. Am I a master yet? I hope so. Hopefully, what I like to think of is that, I can only scale me to one. And so if I only do what I do, only one of us gets that benefit. But if I can share my skills, then I can scale beyond that. So this is a matter of principle. The teacher always knows better anyway, but hopefully I can scale my experience. And to that end, if that made me a master, that's awesome. If not, I should do it anyway. Get up in front of a user group and spend 5 minutes sharing the cool thing that you figured out. Or, at the point where you get over being scared, spend 2 hours sharing what you think you figured out. And you're going to benefit a whole lot. But others may benefit too.
Yeah, I have to echo the sentiment because, especially web technologies, change. It's changing right now, right? So, I actually think that software is a great place. That it's a great field to get into because no matter you have the opportunity to pick a new space that's sort of interesting to you, and you can become sort of the leading edge of that space because there's nothing there yet. Like think about where Node was 2-3 years ago. Right? Think of and there's technology adoption curves and stuff like that. And so that's like thinking of a mastery of a given specific technical skill is one thing. Whether it's like Docker or something, which is what I'm currently sort of feeling and succeeding at. Actually, I think it has the triggering of a lot of what Jeff was talking about 2 months ago. I did a hacking project last week, and I literally wasn't sure if the demo was going to work because it wasn't working the coding, and I was expecting it to fit. And so I was setting up a dais, which is it's kind of like a platform as a service thing. Turned out it worked, which surprised me when it was happening. But that was a big win. The things that I really say that I have maybe mastered at this point are more general things like version control or configuration management. And it's not that I'm a master at Git. No, I just allowed myself to sort of rebase more than once a week. But I've mastered it. When I want to record something, I use version control. I seek to leverage that skill in lots of places. I had I read this book called Debugging Rules early in my career, and it had a nice printout of the 12 steps to debug things. And that was mainly my key for 5 years. And so it's one of these things that a lot of people look to me to go and debug interesting problems. And it's like, well, I'm just sort of following the rules at some point. And of course, I've internalized them. intuition, but a lot of it's just like simple stuff like, you know, like write things down. And then when you make changes, make sure you record the results of those. So, you know, those kinds of skills, like, you know, those are much more just like engineering if you do know things. But yeah, like software, you know, we don't know software. Other than it's useful. It when it works.
I was a good friend that I but the principles are very simple. My thoughts on if you need to teach, you consider the master. I think that it definitely, you don't have to be, no. I've worked with some engineers in my life that, mainly one at marketwatch.com, that are Groupon, that were not teachers, that were just happened to be leads, that were some of the most influential people that I've ever met in my life. They just really intelligent. They were definitely masters of their craft. Now they did teach, to relay their information and their knowledge down to their teammates so they could understand the architecture that was implemented and why it was done that way. So that did, in fact, strengthen their hold of their corporation. Now at a higher level, and I know that Lucas can relate to this actually, because having written numerous books on Android, I've been writing Android apps since the first device came out. Literally, since it came out right now. So I was one of the first developers on the platform, and when I started, I got offered to write the book. I said, "Oh, this should be enough. It's pretty easy." I kind of know the whole framework. And so, yeah, that's not how it works. And so I got in. The funny thing is, I actually wrote my first book in 3.5 years. Only because my wife was in
Context.
Only because I was working 16 hours a day, but I'm single.
Yeah.
The thing is that I got in there and I just started writing out these things to relate this information, and I get in there. I don't understand the fundamental building blocks that I thought I knew because they're so basic to me at that point. I've already built on years of experience to get where I was at, but now I had to actually unwind all that and be able to explain it to a beginner. And so I know it definitely has helped me. I won't call me a master, but I do, and that's okay. I don't consider myself a master and a master in development. But just as Rob said, I do what I do, and if you consider me a master, okay, great. I just try my very best. But through teaching, I know that I've definitely expanded my skill set and expanded my knowledge far beyond what it was before. And teaching has been a fundamental principle of that. Lucas and I first met years ago at the Code Camp in 2010 and 9. Over the course of a couple of years, we were communicating, and one thing he asked me, he said, "What's one thing you would recommend that I do to help further my career?" And I said, instantly, start speaking. And God said, go with the 5-minute presentation. If you're not scared, do the 2-hour presentation, 45-minute presentation. That right there will just skyrocket your abilities, your knowledge, and you can talk more for a crowd. That's just exactly. You're really scared to talk for eventually it's not going to happen. Yeah, actually it's fun.
I think it's really important because you, as mentioned, you're going to have to clarify your own understanding, you have to explain to someone else and simplify it such that it can be used by other people without it looking just like magic. And yeah, I have a personal goal to try to get in front of a user group or doesn't take it at least once.
But that's the perfect thing. If you're interested in doing that and building a career, being in front of a crowd, even if it's the first time you've ever done it, immediately when you're in front of a crowd, you're considered an expert by at least one person in the crowd. By minimum.
Your mom.
It's very rewarding. It's very rewarding.
It is very rewarding, but it helps build your career tenfold. It's just amazing the amount of exposure that you'll get. And also you have people and friends you never knew left.
Well, different too.
And let me ask you just, I'm trying to keep my commentary to a minimum, but I think I can piggyback on what Don has said, because he played actually such a big part as to where I am in my career. that I saw Don doing something. I saw him speaking in the district program, and I was so impressed with it that we became friends. And I did ask him. I said, "How would you further your career? Like, how would I further my career?" And I always joke about that. I'm playing out of Don's playbook. But I remember there was this cathartic moment where I was like, I should write a blog post about something. And I had to accept in my mind that I wasn't going to get a membership card in the mail saying, hey, you're a certified master. You will now have permission to blog. It's that, and then like now I have permission to get in front of an audience and talk. It's that it literally is just making a decision to just do it. You're never going to get permission to do it. You just have to take permission. And you just do it. And by providing value to the community and to someone else, is that you'll always come back tenfold. And so I think the most important thing is to get in front of people, get out of your comfort zone. And it's just amazing how much they want you to succeed. We get these emails that are just like, this was amazing, it solved the problem, exactly what I needed, thank you. It makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, so when do you know what's a good topic to cover? What do you know? You think that hey,
Have you solved the problem recently?
That's a great question. Can you say it?
Yeah, so the question is, actually one more time. So the question is how do you know when you have something interesting or relevant to talk about?
Does it matter? I like to bring it back to you as what technologies do you know? What's your passion? Where?
What are you interested in?
Yeah, I work in the analytics space. I do SaaS, R, Python, analytics, and use data to find patterns to the visualization.
Anything in that area.
I'm sorry.
Anything in that area. If you wrote about it, if you blogged about it, using R to analyze large data blocks in MongoDB with blah blah blah. You can have a blog post like that. You post it on a popular medical forum, or you post it on news. You post it all over the place. You kind of publish it out there. Ask your friends to start them in. These things will naturally start building authority instead of Google. And so as this stuff starts to build, you have to see this long tail effect of a lot of traffic sort of coming in. So you know a lot of stuff that I'm interested in already, because I'm part of a medical startup out in Minneapolis. And we do data analysis on this and stuff too. And so I would be interested in learning how to do it, even I would probably show up. So there's all kinds of stuff.
I can offer some insight on that. I found I love to talk. I love to be able to prep people and talk. And I found that if you're excited about what you're talking about, they're going to listen. And they're going to get excited about it. You enjoy what you're talking about, doesn't really matter what you're talking about. Everybody's going to want to be part of the conversation. And that's just how it works. Find something you love and start talking about it.
There's going to be demos with them. That's totally fun. There's going to be presentations where you get up there and you craft and burn. And that's going to be fun. There's going to be times when nobody shows up to your presentation. Some of the best presentations I've given, actually one I was really excited about. The user group leader was really glad when I came, because then he wasn't alone in the room. I was speaking. So, but I learned, and it was really fun. And those moments of frustration will help you do better on the next one. And those are part of the process as well.
Yeah, and I would recommend setting a goal, the initial goal to be produce some sort of publication, whether it's a blog post or the presentation or demo you're going to give, that you are happy with. And because communication is maybe not as formally emphasized as important in our field as it should be, because going back to sort of the report, I need a button to generate this report. 80% of solving the right problem is actually effective. Whether it's spoken English or, well, let's do a demo of what this might look like, or something like that. And and just even practicing the skill of writing is really important. In one of my positions, I worked as a process in a project management office. Oh my God, this is like the most boring thing ever, right? Where I was like documenting or like helping describe the project management processes. And so I was reading like Jacob Nielsen, who's a bit website, music.com. They've got a Facebook that is pretty popular. But being concise in just communication, it was very interesting. I made a real focus to apply all these usability principles just to process documentation. And it was so weird. I got emails from people thinking like, this is the best documentation I've ever read. It's so clear. They're just crazy. And that illustrates part of the power of just practicing the skill of communication. And if you haven't taken a public speaking course, which I'm sort of counting my thumbs, and I'm not doing very well right now, but that was one of the most difficult, the most difficult training I've ever been to. I've actually left a 2-day course, and just exhausted. And I would highly recommend it. But all this is get up and help people learn and move forward together, because it's going to help. It's going to help you. It's going to help your team.
You brought up a good point here, and that's the goal setting. That's huge. That's what I've done since I've started my career. Above the I guess you could say, in the technology world. When I started blogging in 2005, Jeff Atwood had said he tries to blog 5 days a week. That was in 2005. Nowadays, if you blog 5 days a week, people are just going to remove you from the RSS list because you're just spamming it almost. So I tried to do that in 2005. I was writing 2 to 4 blog posts. I couldn't get any further than that. And so I say set a goal. If you want to start with a blog, you can start with a blog. Then maybe if you're intimidated by not a lot of time, just say I'm going to do 1 blog post a month. And then that blog post may be 5,000 words, so it's a huge wall of text. And you may be intimidated by the 5,000 words. So set yourself a daily goal of 200 words. And use an app like Draft, like draftin.com, version control for writing. If you don't use Google Docs, if you want plain text. Or use Google Docs and you do the word count. You just keep 200 words a day, and eventually that slow momentum will build, and you have to go to hit that goal. And public speaking, I try to minimally do once a quarter locally, and then 2 to 3 times nationally. And so if you start out locally, you can easily do just twice a year, even if you just get the coach. If you just get coach for knowledge, you could do twice a year. And then there's so many user groups out there. I don't the Android one. You could run this one and another one. Part of Milkfloor, and there's so many user groups in time to easily speak to them. And there's going to be times, like Rob said, when you're setting these goals, and you show up to one of them, like this is my once a quarter, and there's 3 people there. Don't let it discourage you. That's because Scott Hansen put it best, because one person in this room, especially right now too, one person in here did something like what I'm saying tonight. I've done my best. I'm happy, and I'm glad that I came. So the same thing happens if there's 3 people there, or 3,000. And so if you think about it that way, it's much easier to show up to these events and see 3 people. Oh, hey, one of you is going to walk out here better than you were before. Or if it's 3,000, hey, 300 of you do that later, you can better.
So the question that I have is how many people would like to learn about analytics and R? You're in the hot seat, buddy. We're coming to get you. So I know,
Recruit, yep.
I know who's presenting next month. Thank you.
I would prefer Python for stats, actually.
But literally, as you were saying that, you say, how do you know what's interesting? And then, what do I do? And then we ask you, well, what do you do? And you say, well, I do analytics with R and these different things. In my mind, I'm thinking, hey, that's really cool. And so we're going to get you up here.
If you spoke about that, instead of the Valley Expenses, your room would be standing room almost there. There's so many medical startups in that area. If you find it interesting, other people that right? So like doctors talk about it. The whole reason I got into it is because I read about it. Like it was always on afternoons in like May of 2015. Every day there was a huge thing about doctors like nagging. So like about it. So it was like
wow, this is pretty cool. Watched it over the next 8 months. It got cooler and cooler and cooler. And so I was like, man, this is wicked. Like, I don't hear anybody else talking about it. So I'm just going to go out and share it. If you do something that's interesting, other people.
And just how many people were at Jeff's talk? How many people were present? How many people took something away from it?
Well, I
Yeah.
wanted to be there.
See? Yeah.
I saw you had a question.
Well, I was trying to get him off the hot seat.
Yeah. So what do you want to talk about in 2 months?
What do I want to talk about in 2 months? This question will probably put the foot in my mouth for me. But, so you guys have talked about the 5 whys as part of the Six Sigma. And really, to me, what that is knowing the business that you're writing for. And so that's my general question is how important is it to watch, as somebody who's just starting out with development, how important is it to walk into a business and maybe not know enough to sit behind the CEO's desk, but at least know enough about their business in order to write effectively for them?
So to summarize the question real quick is when you go into a business, how important is it to have an understanding of the business model? You want how the business works to be an effective developer.
I find that I'm a pretty good developer, but I'm not a very good technical engineer, water salesman, fireman, what business I'm walking into. And so I really lean on my contact at the business to teach about their business model. I try and get a little bit skilled in what they do, but I understand that really they're the expert. And so my job is to listen to them and to watch and get out of the way while the fire drills happen around me. But if I can watch them do what they do, I can see where they're struggling. And listen carefully to the things that they say 4 or 5 times, because that's where they're really struggling. But I can also build that knowledge. And so, if I walk in believing that I was an expert in their business, they would walk me out the door. Instead, I walk in believing that I have a lot to learn about their business. Yet I'm skilled in software and they know nothing about it. So, neither of us are stupid, but we're stupid in each other's fields, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think for better or for worse, it's not an expectation. It's not in, especially entry, and even sometimes the first step up to senior engineering role, really understand the business too much. I think that the more skilled you are in asking why and withholding reservation, like genuinely asking to understand so you can solve a problem better, the more you'll very quickly, I think, become regarded as someone who does understand it. Most of the things that there are very technical fields, like say you're writing software for process control of a semiconductor machine, and then the implanter, okay, yeah, you actually do need some physics at some point. But
So you don't need to be good at
yeah, and they're not going to hand you that task to start with, probably. So I think being inquisitive will generally be and then having a good grasp of the technical side, how to solve various problems.
I think that the majority of my career has been in consulting, and so I feel that understanding the business domain best as I can before I dive into the problem is my number one concern when I first walk in the door as a consultant. Because I'm there to help solve a software problem, like Rob said. But at the same time, they're telling me they need ABC, but if I actually can understand the problem, that's why enough times or with your basic inquisitive questions and so forth, I may actually see that they need X, Y, and Z actually. I may actually be able to come back and tell them, like, here's what you're telling me, but based upon what you were saying, here's what you're telling me. And 80% of the time I found that works very well. The clients are very happy. thank you for showing us this career. You need to think of that. That's great. The other 20% of the time, you know, client, they want ABC, and that's what they want. They don't care. They know they've gone through the entire process and need to get that done. And that happens in a lot of industries. I've dealt with this with the medical industry. I did some work with Banner Health. They wanted something done for ABC. I recognize that wasn't what they wanted. It was XYZ. But they want to go to ABC route. So that's what I built. Unfortunately, along it ended up failing. The project failed and bombed. And there's no finger pointing, but this is what it is. But I was able to understand what they wanted and I was able to build it. If I didn't understand it, there's going to be huge gaps in the development process. So I think understanding the business domain is a huge part. You may not need to understand what the CEO level by any means, but it's definitely to understand the future or the component and you're working on understanding enough to what inputs are affecting it and what your output is going to be. Because you're now that black box. And you make the sense.
Yeah, and it depends on the role. So, like, I think what you described as the hallmark of a consultant, you're being brought, so in my case, it might be being brought in to solve some sort of performance problem. Okay, well, things are slow. Okay, all right, I can help you with that problem. So I saw that a few times, right? But when you have titles like consultant, like that's more of the variety of, well, you do have that freedom or expectation, really, I think, to suggest, like, other folks in your field, when they're trying to implement this process, they do A, B, and C instead of X, Y, and Z, consider that, and like a concept like maybe they did decide, okay, rock and roll. That's what the client is paying for. You just have to make sure that they understand that. From a certain perspective, what they really want is a solution to the problem.
Usually what they explain is the solution, not the problem. Here, solve this solution.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, but
Clients are different.
That kind of is the question. There's obviously consulting versus in-house developer. That's a very different path of experience. How does that impact
So the question is, how does the differences between being an in-house developer and being a consultant, there's some very different roles, how does that affect your path to mastery?
I'll go first, too. I think in my case, consulting is very much a per individual basis if you enjoy it or not. I've known a lot of people, myself included, that love consulting. I love now to help solve fix problems for clients, and maybe developing brand new software and maybe fixing the problem that's doing the same with performance. There's such a wide variety of what's going on. I love change, so for me it's perfect. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the only way to get to mastery. As I said before, I've worked with people at MarketWatch.com, Dow Jones, DuPont, all kinds of places that were full-time employees that will definitely master something like that. I think it's which route you go doesn't determine
I think so. I've been mostly full-time employee. I've been contractor for a couple of years. And I've also done consulting. And I think, especially when you're trying to, if you're looking for exposure to different companies and technologies, then contracting is perfect, right? Especially, it all comes down to personal situations because you need to account for healthcare, retirement kind of stuff. I enjoy the stability, full-time employment for the most part, but consulting is, like, I actually am particularly interested in performance, sort of consulting. So, and you get to work with lots of different clients and solve different problems. I like change as well. Being able to, it's kind of interesting that classes of problems show up in lots of different places. And so, if you enjoy solving particular classes of problems, you can turn that into a career. You have to take on your own marketing. and so forth. But say you particularly enjoy relational and database performance or something. That's a very marketable field if you don't mind traveling and being the guy who knows how to put the right thing on the right index and the right query. It's fun. Very fun. Or like how to distribute this, distribute your queries across a backend architecture to be more resilient in certain times. Right? So I would say that the main thing is to figure out what you're interested in, and maybe use contracting as a way to sample that and move around. Maybe use your evenings as a way to figure that out. But so my personal approach has been to pick things that I'm interested in and just go do that and sort of not worry about the rest. Like, I'm very fortunate that I feel like I get paid to have fun, which is a very special position, I think. A very special opportunity. So I'm really grateful. There's a lot of people who don't enjoy what they do.
I'd say that kind of the line between consultants and full-time developer is a lot fuzzier. It's definitely across the line. On the one hand, consulting gives you more opportunities to assist you with stuff, but you have higher lows, or higher highs, lower lows, and you have this needs, and you have to be more cognizant of marketing and like that. You're a full-time developer, you're more a cog in a wheel, and your problems are more long-term, and you may not see the implications in salaries and marketing and business, and that may be fine. And so find that place where you're most comfortable. Perhaps wander between them, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you're solving software problems. You need to solve. So go solve software problems.
It's kind of something a little bit. It's really you'll find that in the in-house space, you can solve the longer-term, deeper problems, not just be able to grab that in that space, or the tends to be where that comes in. But the consulting is more about the short-term, something is broken outside of the problem, and if you coming in that gap, that kind of like way of looking at it.
But it depends. As you're consulting, you may find the odd problem that needs to go really deep, and a long-term gig, you may just be skimming across the top because that's where you. For the most part, I think that's a good analogy. That long-term tends to be deeper and consultancy tends to be shorter. I like that.
If you approach a full-time job, like consulting approaches every problem that they encounter, you're going to get to master it. Because you're asking the same whys, you want to understand the problem you're being asked to solve. Right? You're not going to fuck the fuck. You want to know what the fuck. Right. I mean, it comes back to what you were saying about whys. Just like understanding what problem you're really being asked to solve. Even if your job, I mean, you have to understand your criteria for success. And if you deliver what they ask for, even in a full-time job, it doesn't actually solve the problem the business has. You kind of actually, because your success is tied to the success of
Some businesses have longer tails and ignore that tail.
Yeah, it depends on your margins. But yeah, absolutely. So like right now, I consider my top level goal is to reduce or improve the concurrency in my organization, to decouple teams from each other. Okay, yeah, we're going to use some continuous integration to go through it, to do that. But like, synchronization is bad, but not just in Sure, Joe. But if you think about how change like flows like through the business and stuff like that, you have like 100 people moving a lot of stuff. It's going to be frustrating for everyone. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And Stu has the longer term goals, as mine is kind of completely on the opposite end of that, where I'm focused on the bleeding edge of Android, the piece of moving it with the lightning bits, staying focused on that, staying focused on moving it above node and all those stuff, because I have clients in both areas. And so staying in that area, always trying to be aware of what's going on in the pipe, because actually data, that's what I end up focused on. Kind of feeling. So, like, completely different.
Well, except we're actually trying to use a lot of like that tech. So it's yeah, and that's the interesting thing is that like you can't have everyone pinned to the bleeding edge. Yeah, no, you can't like it's bad.
Yeah, that's what really hurts. It has the long term goal in mind.
edge for a reason.
So
I think it also comes down to, like it's saying, you have to find what you love, even the aspect of what you love. Because, like, for instance, we're salaried employees. We work at a company, and our mastery is the idea that I know every bit that exists on my entire environment. You know, that's just how it works. But it's also we get the opportunity where we are to work with a lot of cutting-edge stuff as well. But I've worked at companies like, for instance, Cisco. Weren't even allowed to touch cutting edge. So you can talk about it because they'll stab you. You know, I mean, it was... Yeah, pretty much. Most boring job I ever had. But, you know, it's the aspect of, before I worked at Cisco, I thought that was going to be awesome. And then realized that it didn't matter who it was what I was doing there. And, you know.
It's not even so much what I'm doing there, that's how I feel about what I'm
Oh, that too, yes.
doing. Because if I don't feel like I'm getting satisfaction and joy out of this, it's going to suck. And you could step into the same role and probably love it.
Well,
So I need to leave, and you need to take my spot.
Well, I think it falls at the core of all of this. You're not going to become a master if you don't like it. I mean, it doesn't matter how long you go to school if you hate what you do. You're not enjoying what you do. You're not going to become a master at it because you're never going to find that drive to go above and beyond everybody next to you.
Is that really the definition of master going above and beyond everything done? That's not.
I hope not. Well, whatever. I'm not intentionally trying to be a master.
You in the back.
So, all this stuff is, I'm just curious about, like, when you don't know something, like, how much can you not know that?
So the question is, I'll try to articulate that, but I don't know, is how much can you not know? I think for me, how I interpret it is, you know, before it actually kind of becomes a problem, because it will ultimately be, you cannot know everything. So how much can you not know to be a master?
I think, make a quick comment, and you guys can run with it. Comment that I have is that as you become into the master level or whatever you're trying to attain master status in, you eventually realize that you know less and less. And that's the part that you have to recognize. So it's, you end up learning that what you thought you know, you don't really know. And that's a very humbling aspect.
I was in a plastics class for design. We were learning about how to build products, how to craft various pieces. And it says, my job is not to teach you plastics. My job is to teach you how to ask the right questions of plastics engineers so you can get the things you want. And so I'm going to teach you kind of the general theories about how plastics work. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's poly and I forgot after he said that. It's about knowing the right questions. I would say that the majority of times in software development, we need to be receptive to those answers and really not close ourselves off from answers. And at the end of the day, we're probably going to know very little about anything, but we're going to build up a network of people to ask, or sites to visit, or Google skills, or perseverance, or cuts and bruises, and figuring out the right answer. And that's okay. Ultimately, you want to get skilled in the craft, don't just kind of wander in. But not knowing everything is totally fine.
it's the norm. Like, and so I'm in the middle of reading a really good book by the guy who wrote CF Engine, Mark Burgess, In Search of Certainty. And where I think, and this goes back to actually the fact that we are in a very immature industry, and we're kind of moving out of the part. So Burgess makes a comparison between physics, Newtonian physics, and quantum physics and stuff like that, where the reason Newtonian physics is so useful is because all the indeterminism at the scales that most humans interact with don't matter. And okay, fine, we figured out that yeah, it breaks down, and we get very small or very large. And I think we're starting to see those effects of scale. You have those effects of scale, and so the question of, well, is some service failing? Maybe, it is. It's maybe moving between various states, and you may be able to measure it certain ways. It may be good enough, but we're increasingly having to deal with just less certain things. Right? So what I would say is that a lot of times, what's more important is to be able to give a reasonable answer quickly with a reasonable estimate of your error, so that you can make some reasonably informed decision like right now. Like, should data center operations roll some patch? Should they stand up more SQL servers? Etc. Because, are we going to make it through? Stuff like that. And there's going to be risk in maybe either direction, right? And so it's about making the best decision you can and trying to make that with data. And hopefully you've done a pre-work to have trusted sources of data, or at least data that you understand what it looks like. I totally recommend graphs. And there's actually some interesting stuff around like moving the operations world past like the script charts that you see in like graph, right? Just like data time series things, and moving things into like the frequency domain, so you can see different levels of variation and stuff like that. That's what I mean by but like, so that you can see when patterns are changing more easily. And because the answer is like, do you know everything? Like, can you be a master of everything? I mean, clearly not. Or at least for me, it's clearly not. And so it's more about knowing what I'm good at, knowing where the horizon of my own skill is, and making sure that people who are asking me questions recognize like where my info runs out. Saying, well, and here's the worst case, and sort of stated in algorithmic terms, worst, best, minimum performance. Sorry, worst, best, and
You put the best by saying that take the data you have and make the best informed decisions you can at the time. I do this all the time. It's happening in many instances where maybe I'm running to a new client that needs something, a new web technology, a new solution built out for the web, and I need to figure out what technology they want. And Rails is going to be Python is going to be Node, is going to be .NET. There's all kinds of different data points I need to look at there. What does a team need? What's the cheapest option for them to host it? All these different variables I don't know. It's all stuff I don't know. I have to dig and get as much info as I can, and then just make the best informed decision.
And looking to other fields is often very useful because there's a lot more mature field. And so you can bring in failure mode effects analysis to help you understand where your risk lies. And there's various ways to do trade-offs to make decisions, in a framework and stuff like that. So,
I think we keep coming back to the structured one. It's all about risk mitigation. And
we solve the problems, there's inherent risks in disrupting what's there, inherent risks in our magic falling apart. But if we have control over that risk, or alternatively presenting the business, the nature of that risk, that can be
Jeff, did you?
I kind of like to follow up because of this, but how do you recognize when you've fallen into like local mastery versus local mastery? I know personally, growing up where I grew up and being interested in tech really early and having no other friends that were interested in tech, right? It was really easy for me to achieve local mastery and have absolutely no idea what more local mastery is. Makes sense?
what I think best. I was prom king, and was also homeschooled.
Yeah. You too? Yeah. So for the Hangouts, I'll just restate that question. Is how do you recognize when you have fallen into local mastery versus global mastery?
How do you get out of that?
And more importantly, how do you get out of it?
Personally, for me, I always view it as I'm never world master. I've never reached the status of world master, and I never will. There's always someone who knows something more than me. Probably in this room, guaranteed in this room, many if it's I'm from a small town in Northern California too. Not saying it's California, but how do I know if I've reached that status? Usually, I travel, or I have traveled beyond that to expose myself to other areas. And I've done that when I was in Minneapolis. I became very well known out there for technology. Same thing for mobile. I just traveled outside of Europe. I went to Omaha and spoke at a conference there. And realized that I knew nothing, but I thought I was exposing myself to larger markets. And I can also see this just from the availability of things on the web now to communicate and watch all kinds of webcasts from Google, from the developers like you and me. You can see where you fall in that range. And you're like, I knew everything about technology. I just watched the webinar. I had no idea. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times that's happened. So it's now that the internet is open and many people on it as they are, I think your options are endless for technically get out there and search for to see where you fit that skill. But I don't know way of knowing job 1 until 7. I always aim to just keep going. Get better.
I really like that idea. I think it's less about the classification. Like, how good am I? As it is, I love to make really focus. How do I get out of the rep? How do I recognize that I'm in a rep? How do I recognize that I can scale? And then what do I do about that? I think that's really the key. How that one is that, I'm really looking at the idea of travel to various places, usually virtually or physically.
So I'll tell you what you do. You put together a software panel of experts. I'm gonna let guys. Just kidding. Steven?
Yeah, so I think that mastery is often confused with fluency, and it's really not mastery. So I'll go back. Like I think I probably have mastered version of both at this point. I'm not maybe writing things down, some design stuff, but am I even like a master at Java or we can talk about like Molokai, but is that even all that interesting? In certain cases it is, and I think the way to get out of that rut is to I try to do this whenever I can, is to work with people who are better, get as much, whether that's professionally, on a day job or outside, or at a half day, startup weekend, or whatever it is, but to challenge myself. It's okay with that.
So I guess that kind of comes back around. Like, when you, this is kind of something that's personal observation, but really kind of goes it's like
recognizing when you're in a rut has a lot to do with recognizing when there's no one better. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's when I get really uncomfortable. Like, if I'm teaching everyone else around me, that's a problem because I know that I'm not being challenged or being influenced by other ideas, right? That might be contrary to my more experience than my perspective.
Yeah, and if there's no one else in the room that is challenging, it might be time to change rooms.
That happened to me recently. I've been doing Android since 2008. I'll be honest, like, after you do something for 6 years, you kind of just get tired of doing it. Okay, I get it. I know it's not going to work here, it's going to work either. And so when Node came out, I kind of got into that, and I got to a level which I thought I was pursuing that, and then I kind of got to go with it. And then I knew I needed to expose myself to some other people who needed to do it. I went to Node AZ, which is focused on that group, which was way out of my expertise, things they've done, and all these libraries, and I just walked in there and just humbled and very happy to see that I was surrounded by people that were far beyond my level. I literally left that night with notes, and I left with the feeling I'm sure you're looking for, but wow, I'm growing as an individual and professional. So it was just, it comes back to perspective.
There are a few questions here. So let's actually start in the back and report if you don't mind.
Focusing on kind of early days, those are the major, hardest technical background and how to specifically about software.
So the question is, from the onset of your career, what was your hardest technical roadblock to get your mind around, and how did you solve that?
Mine was around, I was back when I was doing .NET heavily in the early 2000s, and I approached two problems. I had two, because I did them at the exact same time. Don't do that. One was dependency injection. It was just starting to become popularized. It was Scala had just started writing about it, bringing it up from old John Paul Boohoo, for those of you who know him or have read his stuff back in the day, he wrote about it in some magazines. So I completely confused with that. I had no idea what it was. I read the article probably 20 times, and then he kind of outlaid how to write your own. Basically, your own dependency injection container. I went and wrote my own dependency injection, figured it out, and then the light bulb went off. So it's kind of like doing algebra geometry. You do it over and over, and then finally it clicks. So it was that one, and at the same time, I was learning how to do the distributed architecture, so to scale horizontally using some type of service bus. And at that time, it was paid service bus. And so, luckily, I was the tech ed that year, and I got to speak with the author, Jahan. It was in London, and we wrote the library to actually see his talk and talk to him about how we could use message queues and so forth to actually communicate and spread the workload and servers to the queuing. So I did both those at the same time, and those are the ones that I probably
I don't know what technical problems I actually got stuck on, but I've been stuck on quite a few in ideas. The one that stands out to me is less technical and more, I guess, interpersonal or political. I woke up one day and realized that the company I was working for really liked hiring people in college, getting them to drop out, and getting them to stay there for the rest of their life. And I had various people that I was looking to as mentors who knew nothing about my profession. And I realized that I could stay here and probably do okay and be a dinosaur for the rest of my life. And that was not okay for me. At the point where I realized that was not okay, I also realized I had a few more degrees than everyone else in the room, which was also really scary. And I went shopping for a new job. Then to come back into, come back to work while shopping for a new job, that's kind of a scary place to be. I come home and I'm like, so honey, I don't want to be employed anymore. But it was a lot of fun. Pushing through it, I figured it out. I never got through that. And now my goal is to not do that for anything. So I'm going to keep gnawing at the cutting edge stuff and do really cool stuff. Because it'll be fun.
Get that? Steven.
So I think if I understood the question right, the question is to what was the most difficult thing, technical thing to learn? And I think that I'm not sure it was the most difficult, but it was the most important technical thing to learn was to develop for operations. And that, essentially your software, its nature, it's built to be executed. And if it's not executed well, then you need to go and fix that. There's probably a lot of, or there may be a lot of dollars or whatever is on the line. And being able to, number one, avoid getting paged in the first place. But when there is some sort of problem, having the information in the logs or in the database or whatever it is, such that you can figure out what the problem is and hopefully fix it without redeploying things. Or if you have to redeploy things, hopefully you can do things where you can replay whatever the inputs were and fix up the existing data. So I sort of I learned to write software in an environment where mistakes were very expensive. Like, you screw up. It was sort of semiconductor manufacturing, and so if you scrapped a lot, it was probably, depending on where it was in the line of production, it was somewhere between $100,000 and $1 million, depending on what sort of chips were being made. And then downtime in the fab is like $100,000 an hour, and there's no window, so nobody knows what day it is. So downtime is just bad, right? So you don't have DHA, you don't have stuff. And so I think it's actually very important for software engineers to spend time in ops supporting the stuff that they write and fixing the problems that are in every bit of software. I'm not saying I write perfect software, no, that's not important. But it's being able to have systems that you can recover safely from, and thinking about how things are going to fail, because everything fails.
One of the principles of software engineering.
Yeah, and there's a lot to learn from telecom. Here on the JVM, Okta is a great thing that we can message passing in general.
And one of the things that really lit the light bulb for me was that I realized that I wasn't really building software for a compiler. I was building software for the person who was going to be writing it. And so I don't code for cleverness anymore. I don't try and find really cool solutions. Instead, I code for legibility. Because usually the guy coming behind it is going to fix it is me in 3 weeks.
Well said.
So the fact that it runs well on the compiler is more or less irrelevant. If I code for legibility, then I produce SM results.
Yeah, and there's a quote called Richard, but essentially debugging is twice as difficult as writing. So if you program a cleverness by definition, not smart enough to debug. So don't do that.
Yeah.
And it actually should it's actually shaped the ecosystem on my own team. We picked Python because as a community value, mutability is the rule one. Python code. In fact, my manager the other day for not writing Python code. He's like, well, it's better than Bash. I'm like, I understand that. I don't care.
Next question.
Two questions for you. First thing you do is good. I'm kind of that same spot where I'm trying to get it for the right word. go to bloggers that I read and go to random questions about stuff, and it's before you get an answer that I wasn't what it's checking. You know, it's oh, I should probably go research this large furnace. I just this is my answer stuff. I got the same thing. I think it really me that last month this group. That's some really good. You know, the other one is talking to you. One is notorious for mentioning. Pretty cool to use copper. Ball is right on by. What do you want to present?
Well played.
And it worked out really well. He gave the coolest sidewalk lightning talk last month, which followed up the previous month. He did a really, really excellent job presenting NuGet and Chocolate. NuGet is the package management system in .NET, and Chocolate builds on top of that to kind of be an app-get. It's then NuGet packages of applications. So what's really cool is you can fire up a box. You can say, go download all these Chocolate and drop it into app-get, so Chocolate installed. And out comes a box that is decently well configured. You install your software on that, and you get puts all the packages in place, and just makes it really nice.
And this is for the
really
.NET.
Yeah.
When I asked Roger, I have no experience. I want to learn myself. There's a growing on that to kind of what's the work with. So yeah, we should learn this is something.
It's really dangerous, but it's really cool. And sign up to present something you don't know. With enough lead time to get yourself really stuck and then unstuck. And the presentation will be really awesome, and you'll have learned a lot. Therefore your presentation is going off what you've learned a little bit. But it's a great way to learn the new technology. Sometimes the presentation turns out to be, so here's why you should never ever use this technology at all. And that's totally fine.
I go to the question of what you don't know. I've done that exact thing where you sign up to present something you don't know with enough new content. Hopefully never.
So let's press pause for a second, because I think there's a real, I'm going to ask a question. Actually, let's take a restroom break real quick, and then I have a proposition for everybody. Let's do the turn. So,
Did I get that right? Lucas is proposition?
all of you at once. It's that kind of a user group. So let's take 5, and we'll come back.